Once upon a time, in a city in Nigeria, a baby girl named Chinyere was born. It was a bright morning and the sun shone brightly, filling the village with warmth. As her mother heard her for the first time, she noticed a special mark on Chinyere's forehead, a sword that looked like a beautiful design. But the joy of her birth was soon overshadowed by fears and whispers. The villagers believed that Chinyere was different and perhaps cursed. They gathered in small groups, talking about the strange mark. Some said it was a sign from the spirits, while others warned their children to stay away from her. Despite the villagers' fears, Chinyere's mother loved her dearly. She often sang songs to Chinyere, telling her that she was a gift from the gods. "You are special, my child," her mother would say, stroking her hair. As Chinyere grew, the mark on her forehead remained, and so did the whispers of the villagers. They pointed at her when she passed by, giggling and murmuring. Chinyere felt sad but tried to ignore them. She wanted to make friends and play like other children, but they shunned her. One day, as she played alone under a big tree, her mother sat beside her. "Why do they laugh at me, Mama?" Chinyere asked, her voice barely a whisper. "Sometimes, people do not understand what they see," her mother replied gently. "But remember, you are unique, and that's what makes you special. Hold your head high, my daughter." Chinyere nodded, but deep down, she wished to be like everyone else. Little did she know that fate had grand plans for her, plans that would change her life forever. As the years went by, Chinyere grew into a beautiful young woman. Despite her grace and kindness, the village children continued to tease her. They would call her names and laugh whenever they walked by. Chinyere tried to make friends, but it always ended in tears. One day, during a game of hide and seek, she decided to hide in the bushes far from the others. As she sat quietly, she overheard the other children giggling about her. "Look at Chinyere. She thinks she can play with us," one girl shouted, and they all laughed again. Feeling hurt, Chinyere left her hiding spot and wandered to the riverbank. She watched the water flow gently, hoping it would wash away her sadness. As she sat there, she noticed a small fish swimming happily, completely carefree. "Why can't I be like this fish?" Chinyere sighed. Just then, an old woman approached her. She had wise eyes and a kind smile. "Child, do not let their words define you," she said softly. "You have a heart full of kindness, and that is what really matters." Chinyere looked up at the woman, who seemed to radiate warmth. "But they rejected me," she replied, tears brimming in her eyes. "They do not see the beauty within you," the old woman explained. "One day, someone will recognize your words. Keep being you and do not lose hope." Chinyere smiled weakly and thanked the woman. She returned home, feeling a bit better. Her mother's loving words echoed in her mind, reminding her that she was special. The village festival was the highlight of the year, filled with colorful decorations, delicious food, and joyous music. Everyone in the city prepared for it, and Chinyere longed to be part of the festivities. She watched as the other girls wore beautiful dresses, laughing and dancing. Although she was excited, Chinyere was also scared. Would they laugh at her again? Despite her fears, she decided to attend the festival, hoping to enjoy the beauty of the celebration from a distance. On the day of the festival, the air was filled with laughter and music. Chinyere arrived early, admiring the vibrant decorations and the delicious smells wafting from the food stalls. Her heart raced with anticipation, but she knew she would have to stay away from the crowd. As the sun began to set, the festival came alive with dance and cheers. Chinyere found a quiet spot under a large tree where she could watch the festivities. She felt a mix of joy and sadness as she observed the other girls dancing and celebrating. Suddenly, a group of girls spotted her and began to whisper, "Look at Chinyere, hiding like a scared mouse," one of them shouted, and they all laughed loudly. Chinyere's heart sank, but she held her head high, determined not to let any words hurt her. Just then, the wise woman appeared beside her again. "Do not let their laughter steal your joy, child," she said, sitting down beside Chinyere. "You have a beautiful spirit. Embrace who you are." With a heavy heart, Chinyere nodded, but she felt a flicker of hope. Maybe one day, someone would see her for who she truly was. As the festival continued, Chinyere tried to focus on the joyous sounds around her. The music was enchanting, and the lights twinkled like stars, but the mockery from the other girls echoed in her ears, pulling her back into sadness. Suddenly, a group of children ran past her, laughing and pointing. "Chinyere, come dance with us. Or are you scared?" they teased. Chinyere felt like cheeks flushed with embarrassment. The laughter stung like 1,000 bees, and she looked down at her feet, wishing to disappear. Just then, she noticed the wise old woman approaching her again. "Child," the woman gently said, "do you see how they treat you? It comes from their own fear and misunderstanding. You are not defined by their words." Chinyere took a deep breath and tried to stand tall. "But I want to be part of their world," she confessed, her voice trembling. "I want to dance and laugh like them." "You can," the old woman replied with a twinkle in her eyes. "But first, you must believe in yourself. Let their laughter become the wind that carries you higher, not the weight that pulls you down." With those words, Chinyere felt a spark of courage within her. She decided to join the dance, stepping out from under the tree. As she approached the crowd, the laughter died down and everyone turned to look at her. The music played on, and for a moment, Chinyere hesitated. But then, she remembered the old woman's words. She stepped forward, her heart pounding, and began to sway gently to the rhythm. The villagers stared, their eyes wide with surprise. At first, they were silent, but soon, a few brave souls joined her, and before she knew it, Chinyere was dancing with them. She twirled and spun, feeling free and joyful. The laughter that had once mocked her began to transform into cheers. The villagers were mesmerized by her grace. They had never seen her dance before. "Look at Chinyere," one girl exclaimed. "She dances beautifully." Chinyere's heart swelled with happiness. She no longer felt like an outsider. As she continued to dance, the old woman smiled from a distance, watching proudly as Chinyere embraced her uniqueness. The village was still buzzing with excitement from the festival when news spread that a rich prince from a nearby kingdom was visiting. The villagers gossiped eagerly, imagining the prince as a handsome figure who would sweep one of the village girls off her feet. Everyone prepared for his arrival, dressing in their finest clothes and putting on their best smiles. Chinyere, however, remained cautious. While the other girls dreamed of capturing the prince's attention, Chinyere felt uncertain about her place in the world. The day finally came when the prince rode into the village on a magnificent horse, surrounded by royal guards. His legal presence commanded attention, and the villagers gasped as he dismounted. The prince looked around, and his eyes sparkled with curiosity. As he greeted the villagers, whispers filled the air. Who will he choose? They wondered, pointing at the lovely girls in the crowd. But among the whispers, a few mentioned Chinyere. They say she is different, one villager said, but perhaps the prince is not afraid of uniqueness. Intrigued by the idea of Chinyere, the prince listened closely. He had heard tales of the beautiful girls in the village, but was also curious about the girl who was rejected. Ignoring the charter, he decided he wanted to meet her. The villagers watched as the prince approached the tree where Chinyere often sat alone. "Excuse me, are you Chinyere?" he asked, his voice warm and inviting. Chinyere was taken aback, her heart racing. "Yes, your highness," she stammered, unsure of how to respond. "I've heard you're a wonderful dancer," he said, a smile spreading across his face. "I would love to see you dance again." Chinyere felt a mix of excitement and fear. The prince was unlike anyone she had ever met. She nodded slowly, unsure of what to do. "Thank you, Your Highness," she finally replied. As they talked, the villagers watched in disbelief. How could the prince be interested in her? They whispered among themselves, feeling a blend of envy and confusion. After their first meeting, the prince found himself thinking about Chinyere constantly. He was captivated by her spirit and the way she had danced at the festival. The more he learned about Chinyere, the more he wanted to know. Determined to see her again, the prince visited the village each day, hoping to catch a glimpse of Chinyere. The villagers began to notice his visits and speculated about his intentions. Some thought he was foolish for spending time with a girl who was different. Why would he want her when there are so many beautiful girls? They whispered. But the prince was undeterred. He was drawn to Chinyere's heart, her kindness, and her unique perspective on life. He began to ask her questions about her dreams, her family, and what made her happy. Chinyere, surprised by his genuine interest, opened up to him. "I wish to create a place where everyone feels accepted," she said one day as they walked by the river. "A place where differences are celebrated." The prince listened intently, admiring her passion. He shared his own dreams of being a ruler who embraced diversity and kindness. They spent hours talking, laughing, and learning from each other. As their friendship blossomed, the villagers continued to gossip. They couldn't understand why the prince was so fascinated by Chinyere. Many warned him to stay away, believing he would bring shame upon himself by associating with her. But the prince, who had grown fond of Chinyere, dismissed their concerns. He knew that true love was worth fighting for, even if it meant going against the village's expectation. One evening, while wandering the village, the prince decided to surprise Chinyere. He wanted to see her radiant smile and hear her laughter. As he approached the tree where she often sat, he found her lost in thought, gazing at the sunset. "Chinyere," he called out, and she turned to face him, her face lighting up with joy. "Your Highness, what a lovely surprise," she exclaimed, her eyes sparkling with happiness. "Honored to see you and share this beautiful sunset," the prince said, sitting beside her. Together, they admired the orange and pink hues that painted the sky. Chinyere felt a warmth in her heart as they sat together. The prince had a way of making her feel valued and understood, something she had never experienced before. "You are so peaceful here," the prince said. "How do you find such beauty in your surroundings?" "I think beauty is everywhere, even in the things we overlook," Chinyere replied thoughtfully. "Sometimes, we just need to open our hearts to see it." The prince was enchanted by her perspective. He looked into her eyes and felt a connection that he had never experienced before. In that moment, he knew he wanted to protect her and show her the love she deserved. Just then, they heard footsteps approaching. It was a group of villagers led by one of the girls who had teased Chinyere. "What are you doing here, Prince?" she sneered. "Why waste your time with her?" Chinyere's heart sank as the girl continued to taunt her. But before she could respond, the prince stood up, his expression fierce. "I see beauty and kindness in Chinyere," he declared, "and I will not let anyone belittle her." The villagers were taken aback by the prince's boldness. Chinyere felt a rush of gratitude. The prince had stood up for her, something she had always dreamed of, but never thought possible. The prince's defense of Chinyere sent shockwaves through the village. News spread quickly, and people began to talk. Some were amazed that the prince had chosen to spend time with Chinyere, while others were outraged. How could he prefer her over the other girls? One villager exclaimed. "She's different. What will the king think?" Chinyere felt anxious as she heard the whispers. It was one thing for her to be rejected by her peers, but now she was also the topic of gossip among the adults. She spent sleepless nights worrying about what would happen next. The prince, however, was determined to show Chinyere that their love was worth fighting for. He continued to visit her, often bringing small gifts, flowers, fruits, and trinkets he had picked up during his travels. Each gift was a token of his affection, a way to show her that he believed in her. One afternoon, they met in the forest near the river. "Chinyere, I want to show you something special," the prince said, excitement beaming in his eyes. He took her hand and led her to a hidden grove filled with vibrant flowers and fluttering butterflies. "This is my secret place," he explained. "I come here when I need to escape the pressures of the village." Chinyere gasped in awe. "It's beautiful. Thank you for sharing it with me." As they explored the grove, the prince shared his dreams of becoming a ruler who valued love and acceptance. "I want to change how people see each other," he said passionately. "Together, we can create a world where everyone feels welcome." Chinyere felt a sense of hope blossoming in her heart. For the first time, she believed that she could be part of something greater than herself. But she also knew that their love would face many challenges, especially from the king. As Chinyere and the prince spent more time together, their connection deepened into a beautiful friendship. They shared stories, laughter, and dreams under the vast African sky. Chinyere felt as if she had finally found someone who truly understood her. The prince admired her resilience, her kind spirit, and the way she saw beauty in everything around her. One sunny afternoon, they sat by the riverbank where the water danced under the sunlight. Chinyere had brought some snacks she had prepared by herself, fruits and small cakes made with love. The prince enjoyed the treats, praising her culinary skills. "This is delicious, Chinyere. You should teach me how to cook like this," he said, taking another bite. Chinyere giggled, feeling a rush of joy. "Only if you promise to help me gather the ingredients. I need a strong prince like you to help me carry them," she teased. They spent hours by the river, laughing and teasing each other, unaware of the eyes watching them from the village. Some villagers were still skeptical about their bond, whispering doubts and fear, but as days passed, more people began to notice the genuine connection between Chinyere and the prince. One evening, after a lovely picnic, the prince turned to Chinyere with a serious look in his eyes. "Chinyere, I want you to know that I see you for who you truly are. You are not just the girl they mock. You are brave and beautiful, and I want the world to see that too." Chinyere's heart soared at his words. "You make me feel like I can be myself," she replied, a tears of happiness slipping down her cheek. "For so long, I felt like I was hiding in the shadows. I'll always be by your side, no matter what the villagers said," the prince promised. With those words, a new chapter began in their lives, filled with hope and the promise of love. But deep down, Chinyere knew that their journey was far from easy. News of the prince's affection for Chinyere reached the royal palace. The king, upon hearing that his son was spending time with a girl shunned by the villagers, was furious. "This cannot be. My son, a prince, cannot marry someone like her," he declared, slamming his fist on the table. The prince's father summoned him to discuss the matter. The prince walked into the grand hall, his heart heavy. "Father, I must speak with you," he said, determined to defend his love. The king glared at him. "You must understand the consequences of your action. The village is gossiping, and you are bringing shame upon our family. That girl is different, and people do not accept her. But that is precisely why I admired her, father," the prince argued passionately. "Chinyere has strength, kindness, and a beautiful heart. She sees the world differently, and that is what makes her special. Love should not be about appearances or social status." The king crossed his arms, clearly displeased. You are a prince. You must choose a bride who is accepted by the people. You cannot throw away your future for a girl the villagers reject. But I'm not willing to let go of Chinyere, the prince insisted. I want to marry her and I will fight for our love. The king's face softened for a moment, but he quickly hardened his resolve. You are young and you do not understand the ways of the world. Think carefully about your choices, my son. As the prince left the hall, his heart was filled with turmoil. He knew he had to choose between his father's expectations and his heart's desire. But the thought of losing Chinyere was unbearable. Meanwhile, Chinyere was feeling the weight of the world on her shoulders. After learning about the king's disapproval, she felt crushed. What will happen to us? She wondered aloud, sitting beneath the tree where they often met. Her mother, noticing her distress, sat beside her. My daughter, love is a powerful force. It can conquer many obstacles, but it requires courage, she said gently. I want to be brave, Mama, but the king will never accept me, Chinyere replied, tears glistening in her eyes. You must believe in yourself and your love, her mother encouraged. If the prince truly loves you, he will stand by you, but you must also stand up for yourself. Do not let fear control you. Chinyere took a deep breath, absorbing her mother's words. That night, she made a decision. She would not let the king's view define her. She resolved to fight for her love and prove to the village that being different was not a curse, but a blessing. The next day, she dressed in her finest clothes, a beautiful gown her mother had made for her. With her head held high, she set out to the village square, where the villagers were gathered, discussing the prince's situation. As she approached, all eyes turned to her. Please, listen to me, Chinyere called out, her voice steady. I know many of you believe I'm not worthy of the prince's love, but I'm just as deserving as anyone else. We all have our differences, and that is what makes us unique. The crowd murmured, and Chinyere continued, her heart racing but her resolve strong. The prince sees beauty in me that goes beyond my appearance. I ask you to open your heart and your mind. Love is about connection, not judgment. A few villagers nodded, their expressions softening, but others remained skeptical. Just then, the wise old woman from the village stepped forward. Chinyere speaks the truth, she said, her voice carrying wisdom. We must learn to embrace those who are different from us. Only then can our village thrive in harmony. Chinyere felt a wave of encouragement wash over her. She was grateful for the support and stood firm, knowing she was fighting for her love and herself. The village gathering continued as Chinyere's words lingered in the air. People began to discuss her speech, some agreeing with her, while others clung to their doubts. Meanwhile, the prince arrived, having heard of the gathering. Seeing Chinyere standing boldly before the villagers, he felt a surge of pride. He joined her, taking her hands. I stand with Chinyere, he declared, his voice clear and strong. We must learn to love and accept each other regardless of our differences. But Your Highness, your father will never approve, one villager shouted. Then I'll face my father, the prince replied with hesitation. I believe in Chinyere, and I believe in love that transcends all boundaries. We must not let fear dictate our hearts. Chinyere squeezed the prince's hand, feeling emboldened by his support. They both understood that they were challenging not only the king's authority, but also the ingrained beliefs of their village.